Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Updates. We've got a number of different clues this evening put out by Six Flags Great Adventure out of Jackson, New Jersey. And Jeff, I think we want to break down some of these clues that at the beginning, I didn't feel like we had enough to talk about what's going on, but I think now that we're a couple of clues in, a few clues in, I think there's a whole lot to talk about, almost a little bit too much to talk about at this point. So Jeff, welcome to the show again. Let's start with the clues here, right?
Yeah, so we're halfway in. They told us that there would be 6 clues over 6 days for Six Flags. They told us that these clues would be for something legendary and monstrous, and it would be for a world record-breaking project. And we've kind of had almost 4 clues, really, because we had an introduction to these clues. They said it's a riddle, it's a scramble, it's a hint, it's a gamble. Stay tuned for 6 days of 6 clues in Six Flags. Then the first clue was a centuries-old legend of myth or reality features a villain of complex duality. And in this clue, it's over kind of like a forest scene,
Yes,
maybe like a pine barrens, and it has 2 orange seas. And then in clue 2, we've got this creature never sees the light. It's always stalking in the night. Is that a shadow that you see? A haunting vision in the trees. And this one has 4 orange R's, and it's the same background. Then in between clue 2 and 3, they gave us this kind of like oddball clue, which they said is not part of the riddle scramble. It says it's not part of the scramble. Basically, it's just a number 12 with confetti behind it. And then finally, the third clue, which dropped today, is better together or go it alone. How you fight your fear is a choice of your own. And this one has 7 E's that are highlighted with that same orange.
so
It's a lot.
there's a lot. So one, I think, and a lot of people are going after this, and it's the New Jersey Devil, that this is the folklore, this is the myth of New Jersey, and there's a lot here to kind of back up that idea. In the very first thing, 6 clues, 6 days, 6 flags, 666, that goes right to the devil automatically. You have the background of the trees, and if you read anything about the myth of the New Jersey Devil, you know that the Pine Barrens, that you called it, that's a huge part of where this animal lives, is in the trees, in the Pine Barrens. That's a big part of it. The centuries-old myth, that fits in, that this traces back all the way to colonial days, pre-revolution, so this is nothing new. The duality thing was interesting, but if you look at pictures of the New Jersey Devil, like classic pictures of it, it kind of looks like a horse combined with a bat almost. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think it kind of has like almost like a goat or a ram's head, because sometimes it's depicted with like horns, and sometimes they're kind of like the swirly kind, and sometimes they're almost like a deer, like where it's like a rack, and sometimes they're like the little pointy like devil kind of horns that you might be used to in pop culture. It walks on 2 feet, and then it kind of has 2 feet almost up like a T-Rex would have.
Yeah, exactly. The other clues, the night of day, that fits in. The 12 is interesting because they didn't want to put the 12 into a clue, I think in my mind, trying to preserve that 666 format. But the 12th, that the whole New Jersey Devil, it was the 13th child that was born, and it was the New Jersey Devil. So they're kind of like celebrating happy the 12, and then when we get this announcement, will be the birth of the 13, whatever ride we get. The only thing I can't put together is a name out of this, because I don't think you call this anything Diablo or Devil, just because of Diablo was already there. Devil is too generic, right?
Yeah, I mean, the I guess it would be easy to trademark at the last minute, just because it is so plain. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, we were talking about this on the pre-show, and the New Jersey Devil, just because of the sports team, doesn't seem like it would flow as a name. But the creature itself has like that personality that we kind of want in high throw ride.
And they still have that statue too, I think, right?
They do, yeah, I believe they do.
It never went down to Texas, so someone has it. It's either sitting in someone's office or it's somewhere. The last clue is interesting too. How you fight your fears is a choice of your own.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we're getting into ride now. I think the devil theme is established. I have no idea what the name is going to be, but here, so getting into the ride. So before we tackle that, we know that there's construction, that there's a construction fence up around the Seaport Kids area. Some of my friends like Jason sent a picture in looking over the fence. So if you look down towards the southern half of the park, in the Seaport area, it's that kids area. There's a haunt back there. You have Nitro, the Nitro entrance kind of in that area. You have the Congo River Rapids flanking the west side of it. So we're looking at the very southern part. And Jeff, you're a big Great Adventure fan. Is that somewhere that we can put a ride, a coaster?
I think there's actually tons of room down there. It's more, I think the tricky part is where do you put the queue in the entrance, because you don't want to put it in the Seaport. So, we were looking at the map, and we think that it's possible that if you kind of made the entrance plaza somewhere, I guess in between kind of like where that family dryer is and where the photo hut is for Nitro, kind of like at the exit of Nitro, that would make sense to make the entrance of the queue. And, depending on if it was a lot of, serpentine, corrals, or if it was like more of a long path, would be, where the presumably, I think roller coaster. So I'm going to call it a stand. Yeah.
I think this has to be a roller coaster. Great Adventure is absolutely due for a coaster. That you're talking about one of the biggest parks in the chain, and they haven't had a major roller coaster since what? Since El Toro? Like, when's the last major? I'm not talking about like Joker or...
Yeah, I mean, they have definitely been investing in the park, but the last thing that really got everybody excited was El Toro. That was 2006.
Yeah.
We had Green Lantern come in after that, and...
That's a relocation. It's a stand-up. It's a big ride, yeah. But El Toro is one that everyone was talking about when that opened. Still talking about to this day as being one of the greatest wood coasters, except for Danny Miller. So you have tons of land that you can sweep to the west, you can sweep to the east. You have tons of space depending on what you do. So, man, I tell you what, the clues. You had an interesting idea, because all of the letters in the clues, they highlight the same letter in each of the clues. So the first clue, it was all C, and there was 2 of them. The second clue was all R,
right,
and there's 4 of them. And then the third clue, there's all E, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 7 of them.
Yeah.
So are they giving us, hey, letter number 7 is E, letter number letter R, that's going to be the second, there's 4 of them, that's going to be the fourth thing, there's 2 of them. I don't know, but you can maybe scramble them somehow. And what have you come up so far with your scrambles? What have you
I kind of feel, because they said, that it's a clue, it's a riddle, they gave like a bunch of things, that there's got to be multiple ways to look at this. And the only problem with saying that the number of repetition defines like a place in the word is that there's going to be 6 clues and there were 7 highlighted letters.
True.
So I'm kind of looking at them as letters and numbers. So I'm thinking that maybe the number, like 2, 4, and 7, might have something to do with the ride. Maybe inversions, maybe records that it's going to break. Something about the elements or the description of the ride. And we might need to look at what kind of rides, would fit with what numbers. And then the letters, I want them to spell RMC T-Rex.
Oh,
We got a C, we got an R, we got an E. So like if the fourth clue is, an X, a T, or an M, I'm going to be doing backflips. But, trying to keep myself in reality here, we have letters that could also spell creature. And, we're only missing 3 unique letters to spell creature as well. So, and, maybe if I give this to more puzzle-oriented people, they could even come up with other possibilities. But those 2 jumped out at me. I mean, I wanted it to spell RMC, so I started there. I did start looking for that.
Well, and I think talking about the ride, so there's a few options here. We know Six Flags is working with Premier and West Coast Racers. That still hasn't opened yet. And both Danny and I said that when we saw that design, when we saw that layout, that would have been perfect for Great Adventure. That would have been an amazing ride. Yes, it's not like a world beater, I think. I think it's going to be a fun ride. It seems more like a family ride. But we said that Great Adventure outside of King Ka could use a launch coaster like that, that's low to the ground, that does twists, that does, the high five. That would have been really cool for Great Adventure. So that's always on the table. We know Six Flags is working with S&S. And we know S&S is doing big things like Steel Curtain. So could it be in that vein? And then we get to RMC, and you said RMC T-Rex, which I think would be outstanding, would be absolutely amazing. And being that Six Flags has really been the first to the block with all the RMCs, with the first conversion, the first hybrid, New Texas Giant. Technically the first single rail with Wonder Woman. And now maybe they're going to get the first T-Rex, but I won't discount them having a huge ground up hybrid coaster in the same vein as like Zadra. We just saw the Zadra POV this week. It looks like a fantastic ride. I don't see any reason why Six Flags Great Adventure couldn't build a ground up hybrid coaster if they didn't want to do a T-Rex coaster. They're both going to get the same theoretical capacity, I would imagine, because we've seen the theoretical or the proposed T-Rex trains having the 2 across seats, that they're going to have capacity on it. I think it would be amazing. Maybe the 247 is a stat. Maybe it's 247 feet. I don't know. Jeff, your thoughts?
Well, the last clue that we got, the third clue, I feel is the first one that has anything to do with the ride and not the theme. And with the single rails, you have to go alone. But if they did go with a T-Rex, then you can choose. Do I want to sit next to somebody or go by myself? But, that was something that I had thought of. It could also be because they're talking about 2s, maybe 2 tracks, like a dueling coaster, like West Coast Racers, but, presumably a little different because they said world record breaking. So they're going to have to find a way to distinguish it.
Well, yeah. So and I know a lot of people have been talking about the dueling coaster, and Great Adventure has that history of that dueling coaster with Batman and Robin Chiller that, is no longer there.
Rolling Thunder.
The Rolling Thunder, that as well. So there's that history there of the dueling coaster that they don't have anymore, which is kind of sad. West Coast Racers, if you build it faster, you build it bigger. I said Magic Mountain's version is kind of like more family orientated, and I know people will jump all over that probably.
Yeah,
that's the impression I get.
Yeah.
Maybe they want something more like Twisted Colossus.
Maybe adding more loops to it. I mean, or more inversions. I don't know. The most inversions on a multi-launch coaster. I know.
Here we go. The dubious world records.
Yeah, really niche there. Well, I mean, if you don't know my opinion on that, you can read my blog. Records are made to be broken. But,
tallest multi-launch coaster. Well, Busch Gardens
is already advertising that, but Premier is making it and Intamin's making theirs. There's no cooperation or love lost
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, no, that's true. So man, I'll tell you what, anything I can think of, the only thing that would really disappoint me is if you got a single rail clone out of this. But you would still need to break records too. So do they do a custom single rail that breaks a custom or a single rail height record?
Well, it would be really easy to do that. I mean, if they made even if it was just another Raptor track and they made it 5 feet taller, there's the tallest, fastest single rail right there in the
Yeah.
whole. So again, if you make the record narrow enough that it discludes everything that beats it, you got a world record. I think the other possibility, because they have just worked with SNS, and I think Steel Curtain, is been a successful coaster. If they are doing something like that but bigger, maybe going for the highest inversion, and that would be an attainable world record to shoot for as well. So I know that's sort of third possibility in there. Yeah.
I tell you, the thing that gets me most excited is an RMC T-Rex, and I think that's speaking for everyone. Yeah. Does it fit? So I guess with the duality, are you assigning that to the character, to the ride, or are you assigning that to what the ride is actually going to be, and that's a dueling coaster? That's question one you have to answer. And I think if you're going to have a dueling coaster, I think it discounts. I think you disqualify the T-Rex, and I think you have to start talking Premier at that point, and something more along the lines of West Coast Racers, which would not surprise me. And that's still a huge investment, because everyone says that West Coast Racers was a huge investment, big time money. If you do it a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, maybe a little bit more exciting and less family orientated, I think you might have something there too. Something that's really exciting for the park, having a dueling coaster like that again.
Yeah, well, if we just take those three manufacturers and see what they're up to.
Yeah.
Right now, Premier seems to be out of work. They don't have anything in the works for 2020. However, that could change tomorrow, because I expect SeaWorld Orlando to announce a launch coaster, and Premier very well could be their vendor. Premier generally only works on one project at a time. So if that's the case, I kind of think that tomorrow that would either say they're in or they're out. SNS just recently showed off track on social media. They said, check us out at IAPA Expo. And it looked like the same kind of track that you see on Steel Curtain and Max Force. So, that kind of chassis, that kind of train.
Yeah.
The only job they have right now is overseas, and it's a 4D free fly. So it's not track for that. It's track for an unannounced project. And then RMC, well, we know they're working on Gwazi. They've been working on it since last year. But other than that, we don't really know what they're doing. So they kind of have room in their schedule as well.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, especially if SeaWorld comes out with Premier tomorrow, I feel like this is SNS or RMC. I feel that that's where we're boiling down to. And the T-Rex is really ambitious, but I don't see any problem with stealing records on the tallest hybrid. You take a few feet off of Steel Vengeance and you build something like, or a few feet off of, Zadra or something like that. We could easily steal that record here and have the tallest hybrid coaster and have a really great ride. I don't think it necessarily has to be a T-Rex. I think, but my only concern though is that when you build wood structure, you're going to lose interaction with the forests, right?
Yeah, I think you're right there, because the bents are going to be a lot bigger. If you got column that sits under you, essentially they could be out of the way.
Because you're not building the beast here. You're not going straight out and straight back in.
But because we have the picture with all the clues have that picture of the forest in the background, and the area that we're looking at is really the only area left in the park with some dense woods that they could have a decent amount of space in. I kind of do expect that it's going to do something with the trees. Like, even if it's just a couple of swoops through them, I do expect that with these kind of teases at this point.
And SNS is so new with what they've been doing that the only two examples that we have are really Max Force, which is a compact launch coaster. We have Steel Curtain, which is an inversion monster.
And the frame for that is massive.
And that frame is massive. Like we really don't know what else SNS can do with, like, could they do something along the lines of like a Cheetah Hunt that goes straight out and does inversions? Like we just don't know what the capabilities of or what SNS is willing to do yet, because we only have these very few examples to go on. Like they could blow up the world and do something completely different too. A lot like, because we know that SNS is owned by Vekoma, and I know they're two separate companies still, but are they going to try and replicate sort of what Vekoma's doing out in Europe? And that's some amazing stuff from all reports. So,
well, I mean, a lot of times when companies merge or when they buy each other, part of the appeal is taking each other's patents and technologies on. So even if they have two different design teams, but now they have new tools that they can play with, I mean, that does open up a lot of possibilities that we might not think of yet.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I think at the end of the day, I'm excited to see what the next few clues here are. So I think we got a really good start, but we're going to have to wait and see where this goes. Hopefully these last couple of clues we're halfway through will give us more insight as to what is going on here. Any final thoughts here, Jeff, before we go?
I don't know. I mean, we got 3 more clues, so we could be like, totally changing our ideas, at the end of the week.
And I'm hoping it's something big and exciting, because that's Great Adventure needs something big, something huge, something that's gonna. I want something to set the enthusiast community on fire here. Orion was a great announcement for Kings Island. Some people don't like it, whatever. It's a giga coaster, or maybe not. Who knows? But hopefully, Great Adventure here can really get people talking about that park, because it's been so long since people have been really excited there about what's coming in.
Yeah.
So
well, every time I hear you talking about Great America and how they just need something more to get people in different lines, that's how I feel too. I mean, they just need more things to get people in lines, and something that's a signature attraction that could eat people, hopefully, is what they need.
Absolutely. So
whatever shape that takes.
Oh, man. As always, thank you for joining us here on COASTER-net Update. I'm, of course, Andrew Barchak from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Jeff Goodman from Long Island, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.